This is a remote learning lecture on the three exocrine glands of the integument system. So the main types of cutaneous glands that are located in the integument system are going to be first the exocrine sweat glands, which are located in the dermis, and they are a coiled tube. The lumen side is very narrow, and it is eventually going to lead up into what we consider to be a sweat pore. And the watery substance will then be released onto the surface of the skin. The next one that we're going to be looking at is going to be the apocrine gland. And the apocrine gland is also considered to be a sweat gland. Its duct is a little bit larger in a lumen size, and it also produces a watery solution that has a little bit more of a protein and a lipid substance mixed in with it, but it leads into the hair follicle shaft and then again will be released into the surface of the skin. And the last one is going to be the sebaceous gland. This sebaceous gland is located next to the root shaft, and it produces an oily secretion. It engages or allows for the hair to remain, or it helps prevent from being brittle and dry. So the first one that we're going to look at in detail is going to be the exocrine sweat gland. So the exocrine sweat gland, as we showed in the last, is a very coiled tubule. So when we're looking at the exocrine sweat gland, we're going to be looking specifically that it is going to discharge directly onto the surface of the skin. Going back to this slide, an average adult has about 3 to 4 million exocrine sweat glands. These are important for the release of thermal regulation or heat. The exocrine sweat glands also has a very small lumen size, and they're predominantly located, as the slide says, in the palms of the hands, soles of the feet, and also the forehead. When we think about sweat, it's 99% water, but there's also 1% electrolytes. Electrolytes such as sodium, salt, and chloride can be present, and other waste products such as urea and ammonia can also be present. So their main job is for thermal regulation. This regulation of body temperature allows for the sweat to release the heat to be released by the cardiovascular system, which then engages the exocrine sweat gland to release the water. And then as it makes its way up to the surface of the skin, the watery surface will then evaporate and cool the surface of the skin. The next one is going to be the secretion. As mentioned previously, it secretes both the water and electrolytes. And then the last one is going to be protection. The protection is it prevents the growth of microorganisms on the surface of the epidermis. So you can think of the watery substance also with the salt being an antibacterial and has an antifungal activity to it. The next one is going to be the apocrine sweat gland. And this apocrine sweat gland is going to go back here and show you a picture. This apocrine sweat gland is going to have a little bit larger lumen size. It is coiled, very similar to the exocrine, but it is going to release its secretion into the hair follicle. We predominantly see this in areas such as the armpit, around the nipples, and in the pubic regions. So they have a larger than normal lumen size. The secretions are composed of mostly water, but also composed of protein and lipids, and this is what these secretions are going to influence. Basically can be acted upon by bacteria on the surface of the skin, and that's what produces the body odor. These secretions become very active around puberty, And they can be stimulated by not only circulating hormones, but also the nervous system, such as the fight or flight response or the sympathetic nervous system. And finally, the last one is going to be the sebaceous glands. And these sebaceous glands are located closer to the root shaft of the hair follicle. And again, they're going to release their oily secretion onto the hair follicle and then eventually making its way up to the surface of the skin. When we look at the sebaceous glands, we can see that it's a holocrine gland, which means that this gland is going to release its discharge directly into the hair follicle. And a holocrine gland means that it's going to release an oily lipid secretion into the hair follicle, and that term is called a sebum. So the sebum acts as a lubricant to prevent the hair and even the skin from becoming dry, cracked, or brittle. Again, these glands become very active during puberty, and it causes and are influenced by the sex hormones. We do not see these glands located on the palms of the hands, soles of the feet. Most abundant, what we see these accumulating are in the face, the scalp, the nose, and the upper back. They also has the ability to kill bacteria, but this oily secretion can also become infected by a bacteria causing inflammation of the hair follicle, and we call that term folliculitis. So that concludes the remote learning on the exocrine glands of the integument system.